Have you ever held a tiny baby in your arms? Have you ever held an infant and just marveled at the detail in their tiny knuckles, the smoothness of their cheeks, or the mystery in their eyes? Or this, have you ever stood at the graveside of a loved one and longed to hold that person again, to feel the squeeze of their hand, to hear their laugh, to remember what their shirt smelled like, to touch their cheek? If you've ever done either of those, then you know something at the heart of today's feast. Today, we celebrate the Feast of the Assumption. And as one of my favorite graduate school professors taught us, whenever we celebrate a Feast of Mary, this is to somehow indicate something that God wants to do on some level in our lives. Mary, who first held the infant body of Jesus in her womb, would one day hold his tiny body in her arms. And of course, she must have marveled at the detail in those tiny knuckles, or at the softness of his cheek, or at the wonder in his eyes. And like every mom and dad longs to do, Mary was blessed to walk his young years with him, to feed him, laugh with him, sing to him, comfort him, watch him sleeping and pull the blanket over him just a bit. And when he got old enough to leave to begin his preaching, and they said that goodbye, I'll bet Mary hugged onto him just a little bit longer, and that maybe they both wiped a tear from each other's eyes in that moment. And then soon Mary's heart would be broken beyond measure when she watched her son's suffering and death and was finally handed his body again. And this time she held in her arms the broken, lifeless body of her little boy. On this Feast of the Assumption of Mary, when we remember that God raised Mary body and soul into heaven, we remember that our bodies matter to God in this life and in the life beyond what we can see. It is good to have a body. Our bodies house our souls, our spirit, which allow us therefore to think and love and feel and forgive and laugh and remember. And it is our faith that, yes, there is a life beyond this life, but not only that it will somehow hold a connection to a body. We even profess in the creed each week that we believe in the resurrection of the body. Now, it's not a resuscitated body. I think of how Jesus, after he was raised from the dead, had a resurrected body. It was similar but different, right? He could walk through a wall, and the disciples didn't recognize him at first, but then he'd say their name, or they'd have a piece of fish with him, and then they would realize that it was him somehow. They'd touch the wounds in his side. And such, I believe, is the type of body that God invites us to, gives us in the life beyond what we can see. This is fabulous news. And why do I say all of this? Because this is the promise for us with our loved ones who die. Like most of you, I've buried people I love. Everybody from my mom who died a very timely death, or my dad who died a very untimely death. But I stand before you in the conviction that there is a life beyond what we can see, and that in a resurrected body, I will somehow hug my loved ones again. This comfort is one of the gifts we are given on the feast of the Assumption.